which is something we've talked plenty about this semester, but instead the way we would structure a manuscript so we'd move from one poem to the next to the next. This is important because for the end of the semester, and we haven't had a chance to talk about it a ton, but for the end of the semester I'm going to ask you to turn in your final portfolio in chapbook form, chapbook, C-H-A-P book. It just means like a short collection. I'm not asking you to turn in a full book length collection for your final project. I'm asking you to turn in something smaller, 12 poems. And I know we haven't had a chance to workshop a ton, but I think between your prompts and the things that you've done, 12 pages shouldn't be completely ridiculous. You can kind of augment it with other things you've had. But I'd like to have a 12-page chapbook in which you are taking work that you've done over the course of the semester and maybe, again, supplementing it with other stuff you've done to build a book that has sort of a story. The way that one piece leads to the next piece is important when you're creating a chapbook. And so I want to spend a little bit of time today talking about how I want you to put pieces together so that they speak to one another, something that I've thought a lot about over the course of my career as a writer, and something that I want to make sure that we're talking about together. So basically, let's say you have 12 poems, hypothetically, but it'll be real soon enough. Let's say you have 12 poems. And what you need to do is you need to take these 12 poems and arrange them in such a way that the reader can gain something interesting just through reading them. Now, assumably these poems are okay. There'll be interesting things going on within these poems. That's great. But if you just randomly put the 12 poems together, you're doing yourself a disservice. Because I think you'll find as you're going through these poems that there will be connections that will be happening from poem to poem that will be interesting and engaging. And so what I want you to do is spend some time thinking about how one poem can lead into the next. Now, I think one good guideline that we think about, this is something that I've had teachers tell me in the past, is you want to start your book off with something really good and end your book with something really good, and then have good stuff in between. So the first step is to write all that good stuff. But let's say that one of the main things we take out of that suggestion is that the first poem and the last poem are really strong. Now, these are pieces that really matter, that there's something really important about these. That one of the best things we can do is pick out two of our strongest pieces and put one in the beginning and one at the end. Okay, that's logical enough. Now you want to make sure that there's kind of a thread that gets followed from poem to poem the rest of the way. And what I mean by that is maybe the end of one poem leads into the beginning of the next. Maybe there's some sort of theme that carries over from one to the next. Maybe there's something that you're seeing that kind of connects them, so that you're putting your poems in the best possible order. This may seem silly. It's not. A poem could be stronger based on what's ahead of it or after it. And if we kind of take that for granted, we're not doing our poems the service that we need them to do. So I've done this a lot when I've put together my own collections. I've also done a lot when I've put together journals that I've edited. In class last week, I talked about how I was the poetry editor for a couple of journals. I also was in charge of structuring the journals so that the poems would be put in a certain way. Now, there's some journals that I've read in which the poems are just alphabetically listed by author. So you just, whoever has a last name that starts with an A is first, and then a B, and the next B, or whatever. That's one way of doing it. I think that it is more satisfying as the editor and maybe for the reader to have something that is conscious as we're working our way through. So you're thinking about, does this poem feel like it's the logical jumping off point for the next poem? Now, it's important to remember there's no right answer. If you put together your chapbook in a way that maybe could have been better potentially, that's okay. You know, you're just doing the best you can in a given situation. But I thought that I would use an exercise to kind of help us illustrate this and understand this idea. So I took a book by Heather McHugh called I Shot. Woo! There it is. And what I've done is I've taken 5 poems from this collection, and I have made copies of them that I've scanned and put into this file, so they're right down below. I would take them out and have them ready to review. It might be helpful in some ways to have them printed out here. I say that because we're going to be moving them around and structuring them to try to put them in the optimal order. So you can certainly do that by just having the files, but it might be more beneficial for us to have the physical forms. I do, right here. So if you want to pause and get those printed, that's fine. But I'm going to keep talking because you can pause, so I'm not too worried about it. So if you've just paused and now we're back, hi. If you want to pause in a moment, that's fine too, but I won't do that joke again. So what I did is I took 5 poems from I Shot by Heather McHugh. And these are poems that are one single section. So this book is set up in different sections. And these are the poems that make up the final section of the book. So these are 5 poems at the very end of this book called I Shot. Now, I decided to do that because, as we've said, it's important to make sure that the poem begins with a strong poem and ends with a strong poem. But when we're talking about a poet like Heather McHugh, who is a terrific contemporary poet, they're almost all good. So there aren't going to be a whole lot of moments where Heather McHugh is going to misstep, as we're going to see. And what I want to do is I want to read them. And I want to just read them out loud right now. And I have taken the 5 poems, made individual copies, taken off the page numbers and all that. And now I am going to just read them in random order. These are not in the order that they are in the book. So what we're going to do is read through them, and I'm just going to read them out loud first. And then I'm going to ask you to go through and see if you can see connections between them. Again, the way that one poem maybe ends and how it ties into where the next one is. Maybe the way that one poem is thematically connecting to the next one. Maybe there's some case in which thematically or something about them is too clear, and maybe that's something that we'd want to avoid as writers if we were assembling them. Maybe we don't want 2 poems that are too similar together. So I'm going to start off by reading Blind Men after Charles Baudelaire. Just look at them, my soul. Are they not truly awful? Alien as mannequins, a little ludicrous. Solitary, creepy. Walkers in their sleep, training those darkened globes on God knows what. Their eyes, from which the spark of the divine is missing, tilted upward, as if seeing far off matters. Never are their heavy heads inclined to downward gazing, dreaming in the gutter. Heads held high, they pass us by, and pass an everlasting night, the kin of everlasting silence. City, centrifuge of brawl and roar, you whirl your horns and songs about me. Avid unto sheer atrocity, while I must haul this carcass of my own around, beneath such skies as man can bear, and wonder, far more mystified than they, what are those blind guys always looking for up there? Okay, so that's Blind Men. Again, as we read through these, I want you to think about how they're moving. As I've already told you, the book ends with one of these poems. This entire book, 54-page book, ends with one of these. The section will begin with one of them too. That's generally how ordering things from 1 to 5 works. It's the beginning of a section. It's not necessarily the beginning of the entire manuscript. So you're going to still want something that is strong and is serving as like a sort of mission statement for the collection's portion, the portion of the collection we're in. So that's Blind Men. Again, keep these nearby and shuffle them around. When I'm done reading them and you're done listening to them, I want you to read them on your own and think about the connections. And then we'll discuss what we want to do next. Through, after Sally Prudhomme. In blue or black, all lovely and beloved, some countless human eyes have seen the dawn. They're sleeping at the bottom of the grave. Here comes the sun. But far more delicately than the days, the nights ignite in countless eyes a spark. The eyes are always sending out their rays. Eyes fill with dark. That they should lose their glimmer, one and all, no way. It simply isn't possible. I say they've turned toward the side we call invisible. And like the stars that must incline to set, they too are somewhere out there in the sky. The eye lights may go down at times, and yet they do not die. All lovely or beloved in black and blue, to any dawn's immensities disposed. On earth's far side they're seeing through the lids we closed. So the 2 we've read so far, Blind Men and Through. Let's just play around with this. If I took the end of Blind Men and then immediately went to the beginning of Through. So I'm just going to take Blind Men and Through and read them. Now I'll stop long enough at the end of Blind Men so you'll see what I'm doing. But we'll see if there's any connection that makes sense. If these seem like they work well, the end of one and the beginning of the next. So end of Blind Men. Centrifuge of brawl and roar, you whirl your horns and songs about me. Avid unto sheer atrocity, while I must haul this carcass of my own around beneath such skies as man can bear, and wonder, far more mystified than they, what are those blind guys always looking for up there? In blue or black, all lovely and beloved, some countless human eyes have seen the dawn. They're sleeping at the bottom of the grave. Here comes the sun. There's some connections there, right? Well, what if I did it the other way? The end of through and the beginning of blind men. All lovely or beloved in black and blue, to any dawn's immensities disposed on earth's far side, they're seeing through the lids we closed. Just look at them, my soul. Are they not truly awful? Alien as mannequins, a little ludicrous, solitary, creepy, walkers in their sleep. Interesting, right? Let's grab the third one. This is The Looker. The Looker. I was as dead as I could be, and you weren't there. They held a big glass up to me. They blocked the world with their life longing. What they wanted was a cloud, the kind that tells the living of themselves. But I was past telling. I was a looker at last, head back, mouth wide as in a heat or holler. I had always looked my best, astonished. With a nose as close to its chin as this, what aesthete would be caught dead with her mouth shut? It's a matter of the golden mean. But then the aesthete knows. Who cannot shut her mouth? She'd better find the finest words around. A matter of the golden rule. No faking, no mistaking, only real love moans and wonders untranslatable. No sweat. When you're as dead as this, you're not a cheat or a chatterbox. Don't fear to look, don't look to stay. Given the almost clear, the near unclouded glass, I did what you weren't there to do. I took my breath away. I'll read the end of The Looker and then the beginning of both Through and Blind Men, just to see how they sound. No sweat. When you're as dead as this, you're not a cheat or chatterbox. Don't fear to look, don't look to stay. Given the almost clear, the near unclouded glass, I did what you weren't there to do. I took my breath away. In blue or black, all lovely and beloved, some countless human eyes have seen the dawn. They're sleeping at the bottom of the grave. Here comes the sun. Let's do The Looker to Blind Men, just to see how that works. I'll read a little bit less of the ending of The Looker this time. Don't fear to look, don't look to stay. Given the almost clear, the near unclouded glass, I did what you weren't there to do. I took my breath away. Blind Men. Just look at them, my soul. Are they not truly awful? Alien as mannequins, a little ludicrous, solitary, creepy. How about the beginning of Blind Men into The Looker? Or the end of Blind Men into The Looker. Centrifuge of brawl and roar, you whirl your horns and songs about me, avid unto sheer atrocity, while I must haul this carcass of my own around, beneath such skies as man can bear, and wonder, far more mystified than they, what are those blind guys always looking for up there? The Looker. I was as dead as I could be, and you weren't there. They held a big glass up to me. They blocked the world with their life longing. What they wanted was a cloud, the kind that tells the living of themselves. And then let's read through and go to The Looker. All lovely or beloved, in black and blue, to any dawn's immensities disposed on earth's far side, they're seeing through the lids we closed. I was as dead as I could be, and you weren't there. They held a big glass up to me. They blocked the world with their life longing. So are you seeing anything that seems interesting to you? It's kind of fun, right? I'm having fun because I'm getting to read great poems. And when you read great poems aloud, it makes you sound like a good reader. Next one I want to read is called The Suicide. After Jorge Luis Borges. Not a single star will be left in the night. The night will not be left. I'll die, and when I do, I will annihilate the whole unbearable universe, destroy the pyramids, erase the honorary medals, wipe out every countenance and continent. I'll do away with the accumulated past, make dust of history, dust of dust. I'm watching the final sunset. I'm listening to the last bird's note. I'm leaving nothing to no one. So let's try the end of The Suicide, just working into all three. We'll start with The Looker. Right? I'll do away with the accumulated past, make dust of history, dust of dust. I'm watching the final sunset. I'm listening to the last bird's note. I'm leaving nothing to no one. I was as dead as I could be, and you weren't there. They held a big glass up to me. They blocked the world with their life longing. That's Suicide, The Suicide to The Looker. Let's do The Suicide to Through. I'll do away with the accumulated past, make dust of history, dust of dust. I'm watching the final sunset. I'm listening to the last bird's note. I'm leaving nothing to no one. In blue or black, all lovely and beloved, some countless human eyes have seen the dawn. They're sleeping at the bottom of the grave. Here comes the sun. Let's read The Suicide and put it into Blind Men. I'll do away with the accumulated past, make dust of history, dust of dust. I'm watching the final sunset. I'm listening to the last bird's note. I'm leaving nothing to no one. Just look at them, my soul. Are they not truly awful? Alien as mannequins, a little ludicrous, solitary, creepy, walkers in their sleep. So let's do the reverse now. Let's read these poems and then have them work, the end of these poems work into the beginning of the suicide. So I'll start with Blind Men. I'm going to read the end of Blind Men and then work into the suicide. Centrifuge of brawl and roar, you whirl your horns and songs about me, avid unto sheer atrocity, while I must haul this carcass of my own around beneath such skies as man can bear, and wonder, far more mystified than they, what are those blind guys always looking for up there? Not a single star will be left in the night. The night will not be left. I'll die, and when I do, I will annihilate the whole unbearable universe. Let's Blind Men into the suicide. Now let's do Through into the suicide. Just the last stanza of Through. All lovely or beloved in black and blue, to any dawn's immensities disposed on earth's far side, they're seeing through the lids we closed. Not a single star will be left in the night. The night will not be left. I'll die, and when I do, I will annihilate the whole unbearable universe. Finally, I've got the Looker, and we'll read the end of the Looker and move it into the beginning of the suicide. When you're as dead as this, you're not a cheat or chatterbox. Don't fear to look, don't look to stay. Given the almost clear, the near unclouded glass, I did what you weren't there to do. I took my breath away. Not a single star will be left in the night. The night will not be left. I'll die, and when I do, I will annihilate the whole unbearable universe. Okay. One poem left of these five. It's called Out of Eyeshot. And this poem kind of carried on to a second page, so I just cut the small part that was on the second page and put it onto this one. So formatting-wise, it looks a little funky because I didn't have it completely lined up. But trust me, this is all one poem. It's called Out of Eyeshot. Years I poured it forth without a thought. To left and right I sprayed the wide world spectacle. I made a blue bird sparkle and a red tree. Phones rang under my auspices, then an ocean buckling by the bucketful. Its whole ferocity was facets. Shorelines shriveled at the sight of me, before which cities too had been delivered. A van with a dent to its name, a rack of near-dead ringers, rolled in an alleyway, and men I had glanced in their tracks. Just take a little shine, a tiny tear burst, and you blow coherences to rainbows. Who needed aim? I had an instrument. But now I'm down to 2 rounds more. The look things level at my gaze are lit with far more animus than anima, a gang of gongs. I have to dodge the ricochets. A single gray would suit me fine. Instead, I'm shot to green-red smithereens. If just to have a salvo dry for what's in store, the big shebang, I cannot weep. I keep my head. I do not make a scene. Okay, so let me read the end of Out of Eyeshot. I'm going to read starting the 3 stanzas to the end. I'll jump into the middle of the line, the one that begins a single gray would suit me fine. And I'm going to read that and then work in first to the suicide. Okay. A single gray would suit me fine. Instead, I'm shot to green-red smithereens. If just to have a salvo dry for what's in store, the big shebang, I cannot weep. I keep my head. I do not make a scene. Not a single star will be left in the night. The night will not be left. I'll die, and when I do, I will annihilate the whole unbearable universe. End of Out of Eyeshot into the Looker. A single gray would suit me fine. Instead, I'm shot to green-red smithereens. If just to have a salvo dry for what's in store, the big shebang, I cannot weep. I keep my head. I do not make a scene. I was dead as I could be, and you weren't there. They held a big glass up to me. They blocked the world with their life longing. This one is Out of Eye Shot into Through. A single gray would suit me fine. Instead, I'm shot to green-red smithereens. If just to have a salvo dry for what's in store, the big shebang. I cannot weep. I keep my head. I do not make a scene. In blue or black, all lovely and beloved, some countless human eyes have seen the dawn. They're sleeping at the bottom of the grave. Here comes the sun. So Out of Eye Shot first, and then the beginning of Blind Men. A single gray would suit me fine. Instead, I'm shot to green-red smithereens. If just to have a salvo dry for what's in store, the big shebang. I cannot weep. I keep my head. I do not make a scene. Just look at them, my soul. Are they not truly awful? Alien as mannequins, a little ludicrous, solitary, creepy, walkers in their sleep. Okay, so this time I'm going to read the beginning of one of these poems and then, the end of one of these poems and then the beginning of Out of Eye Shot. Okay? So let's see how these sound. So I'm going to start with Blind Men. Midway through that second line of the third stanza. Centrifuge, a brawl and roar, you whirl your horns and songs about me, avid unto sheer atrocity, while I must haul this carcass of my own around, beneath such skies as man can bear, and wonder, far more mystified than they, what are those blind guys always looking for up there? Years I poured it forth without a thought. To left and right I sprayed the wide world spectacle. This time I'm going to read the end of Through and then the beginning of Out of Eye Shot. All lovely or beloved in black and blue, to any dawn's immensities disposed on earth's far side, they're seeing through the lids we closed. Years I poured it forth without a thought. To left and right I sprayed the wide world spectacle. It's time the looker, and then Out of Eye Shot. No sweat. When you're as dead as this, you're not a cheat or chatterbox. Don't fear to look, don't look to stay. Given the almost clear, the near unclouded glass, I did what you weren't there to do. I took my breath away. Years I poured it forth without a thought. To left and right I sprayed the wide world spectacle. Finally, the suicide, and then Out of Eye Shot. I'll do away with the accumulated past, make dust of history, dust of dust. I'm watching the final sunset. I'm listening to the last bird's note. I'm leaving nothing to no one. Years I poured it forth without a thought. To left and right I sprayed the wide world spectacle. So, 5 poems. What I want you to do is think about what order you would put these 5 poems. And, eventually we'll take a look at what McHugh did. And I guess that's the right answer, but that's just the decisions she made. And we spent a lot of time already looking at these, but I want you to spend some more time and give me a thought of what order you'd put these in and why. So really think about them. As we've said, think about what poem you maybe think is the strongest one as an opening to a section. Maybe which one kind of exits out in the most effective way. Which of these poems would you look at as the last one? This is probably a good way to begin it. Which one would you start with? Which one would you end with? And how would you make them speak to each other using the other 3 poems in the middle? So that's what I want you to do. I want you to spend some time thinking about organization in terms of where things would go in a collection. And then prove your skills by seeing how you would structure these 5 poems by Heather McHugh. Post your comments down below. Have fun with this. Think about it and share what we've got. I'll go through and read through them, and eventually I'll post the answer of what McHugh did. But I want you to think about how you'd make these choices based on what you're feeling about these poems. So feel free to not just post the order you put them in, but maybe a little bit about decisions you made. Maybe how one poem is speaking to another one. Maybe you felt like, gosh, I just had to have Out of Eye Shot right before the suicide. They just felt like 2 poems that worked so well together. I don't know. Or, the looker and Through, I knew they couldn't be next to each other because there was something about them that didn't feel like they fit. Whatever it is, put those comments below. If you want to talk about the individual poems, you can do that too. I'm up for whatever discussion you want to have. But I want to make sure we're thinking about organization. So post those below. I look forward to seeing what your responses are, and we'll talk more about this as we go on. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.